Ahoy, my friends. Welcome aboard the Afro Tales podcast. I'm your storyteller, Aman Mazinga. Join me as we explore the tales that grew from the people of indigenous and African descent in the Americas and the Caribbean. After, come and see me, chef, who will impart upon you a recipe for the story you have just heard. So with no further ado, let us set sail on this new age of exploration. Pale-faced lightning. Hundreds of years ago, a tribe of little people, the tallest barely above 3 feet, moved into the area of Mount Superstition. Amid the waste of sagebrush and rabbit bush, they built themselves a pueblo atop a mesa. In front of the settlement was a huge pool of water that supplied the needs of the village. Next, they planted fields of maize, pumpkins, beans, squash, and cotton. They dug ditches to bring water from distant creeks for the plants and vines. They also raised herds of sheep and flocks of turkeys, which they considered more important for feathers that they could use for decoration than for eating. In the center of the fields, they raised a lookout, a wooden platform 2 stories high with a brush roof. From here, a guard watched for birds and small animals that threatened the fields, or for Apache raiders. They were a peaceful people, resourceful yet strong. Although the tallest brave among them stood less than 4 feet, they often managed to keep their superstitious enemies at bay with their ceremonies and chanting in honor of the sun. The rumble of their drums of cottonwood and hide, the ghostly sounds of bells, and the words of their ancient songs were more impressive than a show of arms. Hearing this, Apaches or Comanches would skirt their fields to prey on other, less fearsome settlements. Then, one day at noontime, the guard in his watchtower began to beat his warning drum. He had spotted a solitary human figure running toward the fields from the south. On every side, the men who did the farming and herding, as well as the hunting, looked up from their work. Amid the rows of corn and squash, carrying spears or simply digging sticks, these farmers rushed to drive the invader from the fields. To their astonishment, they discovered it was a woman, nearly collapsing from heat and weariness, staggering toward them. She was dressed in a white cotton dress and a shawl decorated with designs from the Zuni people far to the south. But what caused the men to gape in wonder was the woman's white face, fair hair, and height. She was half again as tall as the tallest man among them. She spoke to them in halting words of the Zuni tongue. Her words were curiously accented, but a few among the people were able to understand her well enough. One who did was Lololomai, the old man who was the spokesman of his people. "I have run away from those people who live over there," she exclaimed, pointing to the south where the Zuni people live. I was a stranger among them and lived in peace with them for a time, but I would not marry the man that they said I must. I have heard that you are a civilized people who welcome strangers if they mean you no harm. I ask that you let me stay with you. In return, I will work to earn my food and teach you some of the ways of my people. You are not Zuni, said Lololomai. Who are your people? My people live in a place far to the east, beyond the mountain that the sun must climb each dawn. Then she spoke the name of her people and the name of the place where they lived. But the sounds were strange, impossible for the small people to understand. Lololome said, We greet you as a friend. We will not turn you away if you wish to stay. We will not make you stay if you choose to leave. You are great, generous people, she said. We are civilized people, the old man said with a shrug. No more. So the woman was assigned duties to perform. She helped the women tend the small gardens near the pueblo and make piqui, thin sheets of cornmeal bread stuff baked on red-hot rock slabs. She helped the men who did the weaving, spinning, moccasin making, and fuel gathering. In return, she was given a space to live and share of the community's food. Though she had come from another place, she was respected and were all women. They owned the houses, food, seed for the next year's plantings, and the springs and pools around the pueblo, including the vast deep pool in front of the village. For her part, the stranger taught the people some new methods of weaving and curing meats and healing sickness or mounds. Because of her wisdom and skills, she was soon welcomed at the chief's talk, the meeting of village elders and heads of various groups that was held each winter. Her advice, delivered in soft, strangely accented, carefully measured words, was always listened to and acted upon. With her help, the people found that their crops were more bountiful, their children were healthier, and the Apache raids had grown less frequent as the women taught them new ways to protect their homes and fields. Sometimes, however, the people would see her standing on the highest roof of the pueblo, her eyes fixed on some point far to the east. At first, they did not understand, but then they soon realized that she was looking toward the rising sun because that was where her true home was. More and more, their fear grew that she would abandon them one day and try to return to the place from whence she had come. Finally, the day came that they dreaded. Though it causes my heart to break, I soon must leave you, she said. I long to visit my people again, who live there beyond the eastern mountains. They begged her not to go away, and old Lololome, with tears in his eyes, reminded her how much the people loved her and how important she had become to their life in the pueblo. But when he saw that her heart was set on leaving them, he said simply, If we kept you when you have chosen to go, we would not be civilized people. Go where you must go, but keep us always in your heart. She said nothing. She just smiled, a sad smile, and touched her hand to her heart to show that wherever she journeyed, a part of them would travel with her. But on the dawn of the day that she was to depart, word reached the pueblo that a huge war party of Zunis was advancing from the south. The small people were terrified that the enemy would lay waste to their fields, destroy their village. There had been an uneasy truce between the two peoples for a while. For a long time, the Zunis had insisted that the small people had claimed lands that properly belonged to them. Cries of alarm swept the pueblo. Clearly, this was no mere rioting party to be driven off with singing and drumming, or with arrows and digging sticks. This was a Zuni war band that marched confidently. The warriors were sure that their own medicine would protect them. In their distress, the small people turned to the pale woman whose wisdom had provided them with such powerful medicine before. "Why do they make war on us now?" asked Lololome. "Who can say?" the woman responded. "I lived among them long enough to know that they are a people quick to take a war path if they feel they have been wronged." "What can we do against an enemy who is so strong?" asked Lololome. "We are a civilized people," said the woman. For a moment she hesitated, glancing at the water jug and food that she had set out for her journey home. Then she smiled grimly at Lololome. "Let us go out to meet the invaders. Perhaps talk will send them home. But let us also be a wise people and do what we can to defend our pueblo." She instructed those who remained behind to hide the sheep and turkeys in secret valleys, to carry all provisions, tools, and weapons from the fields below up to the mesa top, and to place piles of stones along the edges of the cliffs above the path that wound up the pueblo. Then she marched out with a party of warriors and elders to meet the Zunis. It was agreed by all that Lololome would speak for the mesa dwellers, though it left a bitter taste in her mouth. The pale-faced woman had suggested this because she knew the Zunis would be more respectful of a man. But when they faced the enemy across the small stream bed, they were dismayed to find that the Zuni chief immediately recognized the pale-faced woman and arrogantly demanded, "You must hand her over to me at once. She is the cause of all this trouble. We have a claim upon her. My people brought her many moons ago from the waters of the rising sun. It was only to escape an honorable marriage with me that she fled to you small people. A civilized people would not make a slave of such a person," Lololome objected. "Our ways are not your ways," said the Zuni chief. "If you do not return the white-faced one to us, we will take her by force. Give her to us, and we will leave you in peace." Then the woman, who had remained silent until now, said, "If you hand me over to them, they will still attack our pueblo. All the time I was with them, they talked about killing, so that they could have our fields and goods and homes. "We will not give her to you," said the spokesman to the Zuni chief. "Then we will take her by force," said the chief, "and we will kill you and take everything you own because you have not surrendered her to us." At this, the woman and the small people hurried back to their home. Behind them, the Zunis, who had been slowed by the swift current and slippery mud of the stream, howled and beat their war drums and made ready to attack the pueblo. Then the enemy, some 700 strong, marched on the pueblo. The small people had set up several ambushes and dug pits, but they gathered their real forces to defend the pueblo. With such limited resistance, the Zuni warriors soon reached the base of the mesa. When they tried to climb toward the top, the people rained rocks and arrows on them. But despite the small people's best efforts, the Zuni made their way to the top. As the enemy warriors massed at the trailhead, the mesa dwellers gathered in a half circle behind the pale woman. She stood across the great pool of water, calm and commanding. Her white robe and light brown hair fluttered in the wind. Both friend and foe looked upon her in admiration. Then, with a cry, the Zunis rushed toward her, brandishing clubs and spears. Before they could reach her, the pale-faced woman stooped, picked up an earthen jar, and emptied the contents into the pool. In an instant, she ran back, crying and warning her people, "Run! Do not look back!" Hissing sparks and blazing balls of fire leaped from the surface of the pool, while tongues of silver-white flame burst from fissures in the ground. When these unearthly fires touched the Zunis, they fell dead. Others, fearful of this mysterious fire or blinded by it, plunged over the edge of the cliff to their deaths. The small people surged forward and drove the survivors back. That was the only effort needed to urge the remainder of the war party to full retreat. "How have you done this thing?" asked the old Lololome, when the dust of the battle had settled. "If we could do this, we would not be afraid when you leave us. Can you teach us how to do this ourselves?" "I cannot teach the secret to you," the woman answered. "This is something only my people can do. But I have decided that I cannot leave you. You are my people now. My home is among you." "That is very good thing," said the old man. "I am grateful for this, though I know this must put pain in your heart." Many months later, a band of Apaches under their new war chief attempted to raid the pueblo. They fell upon people with suddenness and furiosity. Before the alarm could be sounded, many of the farmers were killed. Once again, the woman the mesa dwellers called Pale-Faced Lightning repelled the attackers by creating her deadly fire. This time, the slaughter was even greater. A second time, the woman looked on the scene of many deaths. Finally, she said, "More enemies will come. This is no longer a good place for civilized people. It is time for us to make another place our home." Before the next full moon, the small people left as suddenly as they had come. The Apaches, who claimed their deserted fields and pueblos, said that the strange people had gone to live in a secret cavern in the mountains, where the Pale-Faced Lightning still rules them. Other Apaches have held that her spirit haunts a cave on Superstition Mountain itself, where her body one day vanished in a blaze of fire. Others of the same tribe have pointed out a second cave on the south side of Salt River as a place where the woman's spirit dwells. Still, others claim that a skeleton and robes of a strange, silky texture, beautifully ordained, were once found there. Most more recent visitors, those who disbelieve such old tales of wonder, note that electrical phenomena are common on the mountain. They suggest that iron, copper, and other deposits lying close together may account for the ghostly fires sometimes glimpsed in the caves or on the mountainside. But those who believe her story know that Mount Superstition is her home, and they cherish the legend of the pale-faced lightning. The end. Wow, now this is a very interesting legend coming from the book Cut from the Same Cloth, American Women of Myth, Legend, and Tall Tale by Robert D. Sansusi and Brian Pinckney. What makes this story so interesting is the fact that, one, it is a legend that comes from a location like the Superstition Mountain. So the region in which Superstition Mountain is not far from Phoenix. The Pima Indians say that there's shapes on the mountain that were Indians who sought refuge from a great flood and were told not to look, not to make a sound until the waters had dried up. They disobeyed, and in punishment, they became part of the rock formation. Others say it is the site of the famous Lost Dutchman mine. But there's also more stories and tales. This particular story, the pale-faced lightning, is believed that she may be of another race from over the seas. Some people believe that she may be Greek, Roman, Viking, Chinese, Japanese, Egyptian, Phoenician, Hebrews, Arab, Turks, or even part of the Welsh Mandans, a people that were thought to be lost, or at least that version of them are lost in the 1800s. They believe a Welsh prince came across the water in 1170 and created them. According to these legends, almost every nationality, every great nation has visited these lands and could be the responsible for the pale-faced lightning. I don't know. That will be something you would have to figure out. But it does sound much like science in here. I don't know what the people of the pueblo, Spanish word meaning village, were able to construct back in those days. But we also have the mound builders. We have those that built these great civilizations and towns right into the cliffside in the Americas. These people weren't dumb. They weren't ignorant to how to work land and utilize the resources they had. So could the Mandan tribe be the pale-faced lightning and had figured out how to use natural minerals in the water to create smoke bombs or, create a type of fire? We don't know. If you are a history buff, you know about the ancient Greeks um, or in the old Mediterranean days, being able to use a fire that could ride the surface of the ocean and wouldn't burn out. And people now today think it's like napalm or something that they may have figured out back then, the chemical. If you watched Game of Thrones or something like the green fire from that. Well, I don't know what this woman was able to do, but she protected her people, and that is all that matters. She helped them understand that they didn't need to be there anymore, and that's good. So they moved on, much like people do when they realize a place is either too dangerous or it doesn't yield the resources and necessities that they need for them to survive in that location. We may never know what happened to these people. We may never know the true identity of Paleface Lightning. But what we do know is, they made for a hell of a story. Alright? So, go see Chef. He has a wonderful recipe for you inspired by this story here. And until next time, my friends, as always, have a blessed day.
Welcome, my friends, to the Galley. I am your chef, and today we have a wonderful recipe inspired by the story you have just heard. Today, we will be creating pecan-stuffed sweet potato dumplings. Now, what will you need for this wonderfully delicious recipe? 2 medium sweet potatoes, peeled, 1.5 cups all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of salt, half a cup of unsalted butter, cold and cubed, 4 to 5 tablespoons of cold water, half a cup of chopped pecans, half a cup of brown sugar, half cup of granulated sugar, half cup of water, a 1/4 cup unsalted butter, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now, how do we put this together? Easy. First, prep the sweet potatoes. Peel the sweet potato and leave them whole. Boil for 10 to 15 minutes until just barely fork tender. They should feel firm in the center. Do not cook fully soft. Okay? Now, drain and let cool slightly. Next, make the dough. Combine the flour and salt. Cut in cold butter until crumbly. Add cold water 1 tablespoon at a time until dough forms. Shape into a disc and chill 10 to 30 minutes. Now for the setup. Combine brown sugar, granulated sugar, water, butter, cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla in a saucepan. Bring to a gentle boil. Stir until dissolved. Remove from the heat. You can wrap the dumplings. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius. Roll the dough into squares. Place 1 sweet potato in the center of each square. Sprinkle pecans over the potatoes. Wrap the dough completely around and seal well. Place seam side down in an 8 by 8 inch baking dish. Now Add the syrup and bake. Pour the syrup around the dumpling, not directly on top. Syrup should come halfway up the sides. Bake for 40 to 45 minutes until golden and tender. Halfway through baking, gently spoon syrup over the tops. If doubling, use a 9 by 13 inch dish. Let rest for about 10 minutes before serving. Spoon warm syrup over each dumpling. Serve as is or with vanilla ice cream. And that is it, my friends. Now, go. Do what you do. Make this recipe yours. And remember the story of Miss Paleface Lightning and what she did for the indigenous. And until next time, my friends, as always, enjoy!
Thank you, my friends, for coming on this voyage. Thanks to Art by Chalet for the logo, episode, and shirt designs. You can get t-shirts and other items on tpublic.com. You can contact me on all socials at AfroTalesCast. That's AfroTalesCast. And email me at AfroTalesCast@gmail.com. You may also become a benefactor by simply sharing with any and everyone, giving a thumbs up, a 5-star rating and review in your podcast app of choice, or simply donating on Patreon or Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com. So until we meet again, may your winds be fair and your seas follow.